The New York Mets have had a lot of great starting pitchers over the course of their history. The late great Tom Seaver is not only the best player in Mets franchise history, but also one of the greatest starting pitchers of all time. The 1967 Rookie of the Year, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, and 1969 World Series champion, was voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame on his first ballot in 1992 with an astonishing 98.8%, the highest ever at the time. Another member of that 1969 World Series team was Nolan Ryan, who began his brilliant 27-year career with 5 seasons in Queens. Doc Gooden also wore the orange and blue to begin his career, taking home the 1984 Rookie of the Year, 1985 NL Cy Young Award, and winning a World Series ring in 1986 before personal problems derailed his career. More recently, Jacob deGrom has established himself as the next great Met ace, winning the Rookie of the Year award in 2014 and back-to-back Cy Young Awards in 2018 and 2019. But one of the things that has haunted deGrom throughout his career is a lack of support from his offense. He's been the subject to limited run support, severely hurting his win-loss record. In the early 1990s, Anthony Young was looking to establish himself as a solid major league starting pitcher for the Mets and add his name to the greats of years prior. It turns out a lack of run support for their starting pitching had become a reoccurring issue for the Mets, as Young would set the Major League Baseball record for consecutive losses, dropping 27 straight decisions from 1992 to 1993. The Mets originally drafted Young out of the University of Houston in the 38th round of the 1987 Major League Baseball draft. Young was a standout two-sport athlete at Houston, playing both football and baseball for the university. He chose to sign with the Mets out of college despite having another year of eligibility and began his professional career with the Mets that same year. He quickly rose through the Mets minor league system and made his major league debut as a late-season call-up in August of 1991. He made his first pair of appearances out of the bullpen, then moved into the rotation for his final 8 appearances of the season. Despite allowing 2 earned runs or less in 6 of those 8 starts, to the tune of a 3.10 ERA, Young walked away with a 2-5 record. Despite his losing record his rookie year, Young showed a lot of promise entering his first full season as a big leaguer. Not only did Young earn an opening day roster spot for the 1992 season, but he was also named as the club's 4th starter, behind ace David Cone, 2-time Cy Young Award winner and World Series MVP Brett Saberhagen, and Mets legend Sid Fernandez. Young was a versatile pitcher, pitching out of the rotation and coming out of the bullpen if his team needed it. Out of the gate, Young looked very solid to kick off the 1992 season. His first start of the year against the St. Louis Cardinals, Young tossed his first career complete game, allowing 1 unearned run and striking out 3 for his first victory of the season. 4 days later, Young took the mound at Shea Stadium for his first home start of the season against the Phillies, and pitched 6 innings of 3-run ball, but picked up a no decision after the bullpen coughed up the lead. Mets fans, tell me if you heard that one before. Young's next appearance came 4 days later on April 19th, this time out of the bullpen. He relieved Sid Fernandez with 1 out in the top of the 5th inning, and pitched 3 2/3 innings, allowing only 2 runs, and picked up his second win of the year. Young was 2-0 with a 2.45 ERA after that appearance on April 19th, 1992, and that would be the last time he would see himself in the win column in the box score for over a year. The longest losing streak by a team in Major League Baseball history was accomplished by the 1889 Louisville Colonels, who dropped an incredible 26 straight games en route to a 27-111 regular season. The National League record is held by the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, who lost 24 in a row on their way to the worst record in baseball history at 20-134. The American League record for consecutive games lost is held by the 1988 Baltimore Orioles, who dropped 21 straight to open the 1988 season, but managed to finish with a respectable 54-107 record. Anthony Young would have to pitch in 79 games, throw over 180 innings, lose 27 straight decisions, and wait 464 days before picking up his next win on July 28, 1993. Young opened up May of 1992 with a no decision on the first of the month. He would take a 7-1 lead into the 7th inning before being removed after the first 3 runners reached base. The bullpen would again squander this lead, and Young would not factor in the result. His losing streak would begin on May 6, 1992 against the Cincinnati Reds. They'd touch up Young for 5 runs across 6 innings of work, handing him his first loss of the season. His next 2 starts would see similar results, with Young picking up his 2nd and 3rd losses of the season. He looked to rebound at his next start against the San Francisco Giants and took a 5-1 lead into the 6th inning. The Giants would hang a 6th spot on Young and Tim Burke, who would relieve Young in that inning, and hand the Mets a loss, and Young a no decision. After that May 22nd start against the Giants, the Mets decided to try him out of the bullpen to see if they could get him right. He would throw 3 straight scoreless innings across 2 more appearances for the Mets, and then they put him back in the rotation. Young's first start back in the rotation was against those same Giants that put him in the bullpen in the first place. Young would pitch well, surrendering only 2 runs across 3 1/3 innings before being lifted. The Mets, shockingly, would win that game, but Young would not factor in the decision. The rest of Young's June starts wouldn't go so well. He'd drop all 4 of those starts, receiving only 4 runs of support from his offense, and then got demoted back to the bullpen, picking up a loss in his first appearance. His June 8th start against the Expos, surrendering only 3 runs across 6 innings of work, but Young picked up the only Mets hit of that night. Yeah, seriously, the only hit. He saw those same Expos a week later and won 7 strong while surrendering 2 runs, but caught the loss after only getting 1 run of support. The Cardinals touched him up for a pair of runs on June 20th for his 6th straight loss, and a comedy of errors saw Young only go 2 innings against the Cubs on June 25th. He allowed a total of 9 runs, only 3 of which were earned, to pick up his 7th loss of the season. On June 30th, Young came out of the bullpen into a tied game. He'd throw 2 scoreless innings, but then allow the winning run across the plate and catch his 8th straight loss. The Mets were still looking for a place for Young. They knew he had talent and were having trouble finding out just where he could help their club. After Mets closer John Franco went down with an injury, the Mets tasked Young with filling the role, a role he would embrace. What if I were to tell you that in the middle of the longest losing streak by a pitcher in Major League history, that same pitcher would throw 23 2/3 consecutive scoreless innings? There's no way, right? How could this guy throw over 23 straight scoreless innings and not pick up a win? Well, it happened. After Young took over the closing duties, he initially saved his first game and then was put into a tie game against the Astros on July 4th. He'd allow a pair of runs while picking up his 9th straight loss in that game. Aside from that one hiccup, Young was a perfect 12 for 12 in save opportunities to open up his career as a closer, in addition to picking up a pair of holds as well. And it looked like he would be the new back end of the bullpen guy for the Mets. A dominant July and August saw Young's ERA drop nearly a full point down to a respectable 3.62. But he was still missing that coveted win. As the calendar flipped to September, Young would undo all of his progress he was making and lengthen his losing streak. He'd pick up the save for the first game he would pitch in during September of '92, but that would be about the only highlight for him of that month. He'd come into 8 save scenarios, blowing 5 of them and pushing his consecutive losses up to an incredible 14 straight at season's end. He allowed 11 earned runs over those last 8 innings of 1992, pushing his season ERA up to a 4.17. Young was looking to make some adjustments for 1993, and was slated to start the season out of the bullpen for the Mets, hoping to change his luck and possibly earn himself a win. Young began the 1993 season where he had the most success in '92, in the bullpen. The season got off to a rough start as he allowed 4 earned runs in his first appearance of the year and was hit with his first loss of the season and 15th consecutive. Take that appearance out of it, and Young was really throwing the ball pretty well. Over his next 16 appearances, he would pitch to a 2.7 ERA across 20 innings, but pick up 4 more losses to bring his streak to 19 and tie the New York Mets franchise record, sharing the honor with Craig Anderson. Anderson never got a chance to end his consecutive losses streak, as he retired after his 19th straight loss for the Mets. The Mets had decided that Young had earned his starting role back and decided to put him back in the rotation come June. His first start was brilliant. He tossed 6 shutout innings and handed the ball over to his bullpen in the bottom of the 7th inning with a 1-0 lead. The Mets bullpen went full Mets bullpen, allowing 8 runs and factoring Young out of the decision again. Young had just turned in, arguably, the greatest start of his young career and was rewarded with another no decision. After that no decision on June 1st, Young would receive decisions in his next 5 June starts, setting a couple of records along the way. His June 8th start gave him 20 straight losses to set a new record for the New York Mets franchise. His 21st straight loss on June 13th saw 4 slow infield grounders turn into hits, which turned into runs, which turned into a loss. He suffered an allergic reaction to the quick dry the groundskeepers put on the mound on a June 18th start and suffered loss number 22. After being called upon to make an emergency start on June 22nd on short rest, the Mets made 4 errors and Young collected loss number 23. Tying the Major League record set by Cliff Curtis in 1911. Curtis lost 23 straight games for the Boston Braves from 1910 to 1911, establishing the Major League record. His last start of June, on the 27th, gave Young his 24th consecutive loss, breaking the tie with Curtis to establish a new Major League record for consecutive losses. It looked like no matter how good Young pitched, and no matter what he did, that he couldn't sneak out a win. His first 2 starts of July extended his consecutive loss streak to 25 and 26 before Young was shipped back to the bullpen, hoping to rekindle the success he had earlier in the season. He'd pick up a pair of holds before allowing a late lead to slip away from him and pick up his 27th straight loss. Unbeknown to him, it would be the last of that fateful streak. His next appearance on July 28th of 1993 would see Young come into a tie game in the 9th trying to push it to extras. A Mets error, shocker, allowed a run to come across, setting up Young for his 28th straight loss. Miraculously, the Mets did something that they rarely do, and that's rally in the 9th to win the game and finally give Anthony Young a victory.
For 36th place, and this down the line and right. Here comes Thompson, and the Mets win it. And the big news here in New York is not only this victory, but Anthony Young's streak is
Anthony Young's career can be defined by one word: unlucky. He was a solid pitcher, not overpowering and not a total dumpster fire, but he could eat innings and was very versatile. The lack of run support and some untimely errors hurt Young's stat line, but it never shook his confidence. Had a couple things gone another way, or if Young was on a team that gave him run support, you would have likely never heard of him. He would have just been another run-of-the-mill pitcher from the early 90s. His streak of 27 straight losses is something that will likely never be touched again, and Young will have his name alongside one of the most unfortunate records in baseball history.